Hey guys, welcome to Some Things Fishy. Today we're going to be doing a product review on the ZACRO automatic fish feeder. This thing is wireless. I got it off Amazon for $22, and I'm going to jump into what I love and don't love about this feeder. So the first thing that I want to point out is that it's really not that big. It can barely fit on my tank. Barely. So it does its thing, but that might be a concern if your tank is kind of thick on the edges like mine, if you have bezels and everything. But it's completely wireless, so it's rechargeable. I've had this thing for about a month, and I charged it when I first got it, and it's still at 4 battery indicators, so I don't know what that means, but I haven't had to charge it since I got it. Really simple to use. It's got 4 feeding cycles, so you can have 4 times a day when it feeds, and then you can set how many times it rotates. So how this thing works, and I'll just go ahead and show you real quick, because you can press the manual button. So this is where it normally is in my tank, right above my my water sprayer thing, whatever they're called. And what happens is, I press it, it spins this barrel here, and you load it with food, and then it drops the food in like that. So if you look right here on this top part, I'll bend it down. This, you can set how much food is going to come out, so that would obviously be the maximum amount of food. This would be the minimum. We do just basically 2 clicks like that. And then how you refill it, there we go. So you fill that up with, I just use fish flakes in here. I think you could probably use pellets too, that'd be fine. But super easy to fill up, super easy to use. I love this thing. For $22, you really can't go wrong. We were overfeeding with this thing, so like a lot of people say with manual feeders, you just have to pay a lot of attention to how much it's feeding and how often. So, but all in all, I give this 5 stars, not because it's like the perfect solution, but because it's so dang dirt cheap. My dad was, he hated the fact that he had to feed every day. And so with this, he can, feed once a day or every other day with frozen food, just when you want to see the fish eat. And then this is just a constant food source that they're guaranteed to get. So if we're going on vacation, we can just open it up a little bit more so that they get more food rather than us feeding them like by hand. Because if you have fish, you know that feeding your fish can sometimes be the best part of owning a fish. And so with this, you can choose to completely eliminate feeding or feed just more consistently so that your fish are always having some food source, but you can feed whenever you want. Something that we did have to make a little bit of an adjustment with this feeder was we actually had to add this little piece of plexiglass right here. And as you can see, I just dropped some food in, but normally this would just go straight down my filter. But with this, it kind of forces the food down into the water. And so that was just a simple modification. It's kind of ugly, and so we're trying to figure out a different way to do this. We might cut it shorter so that you can't quite see it as bad. But really, all this is just keeping it from the food from staying on the surface and just going right down the filter and just producing a ton of nitrogen or nitrates for our tank, because that's a very bad thing. You want most of the food that you put in your tank to get eaten by your fish, and if not your fish, then your cleanup crew. And if it goes right down the filter, it can't be eaten by either of those, and so then it just gets destroyed by bacteria. So that was a very important modification that we had to add, and that's something that you may look into getting, especially if your tank is like mine, where it's just flat and the flow kind of goes directly where you put your feeder to your filter. Then you might need to reevaluate and maybe add something like this in the very top, if that doesn't bug you too much for your aesthetic or whatnot. But something else you could do is just simply add some sort of rectangle right around here so that it just has to sink down instead of just floating on the surface. If you have pellets instead of flakes, pellets tend to sink a little bit better, so you won't have that problem. But with the flakes I have, they tend to float, and when it's just dumping right on the surface right there, that was kind of the problem we had. One of the biggest drawbacks with a feeder like this is you can't use frozen food for obvious reasons, right? If you threw frozen food in there, it would end up smelling really bad because it's wet. It would clog up. It just wouldn't work well at all inside this feeder, because it wouldn't stay frozen, right? The frozen food is like the freshest you can get because it's the most well preserved. With this, you have to use dry foods like flakes and pellets. Definitely don't just fill it up to maximum. If you fill it up to maximum, it's gonna get kind of gross in there. It's right above the water, so there's a lot of humidity can get in there, and it can cause rot and bacteria and mold and all that stuff. So, but I haven't had that experience yet because I tend to just fill it up when I keep it only about a third of the way full, and that's fine for my tank because it really doesn't cycle through that much food. Especially for a tank that doesn't go through that much food, you want to keep a very little amount of food in there. But it works perfectly well. I haven't had any problems with it. I see the food go in. I set it to in the morning and at night, and my fish are happy and fat, sometimes a little too fat, but things are great. So yeah, that's the ZACRO automatic fish feeder. Definitely recommend it. Go out there, purchase it on Amazon. I'll throw a link in the description. But yeah, it's pretty great. 5 stars. So I apologize for the nastiness of this tank. It's in the new stages, right? We're still getting adjusted to food schedules and everything, so we had a bit of an algae bloom. But anyway, that's my tank. The feeder's working great for us. We love it. But yeah, subscribe to our channel, drop us a like, leave us a comment if you use something else. Love to see it. I love mine. Maybe people need multiple if this wouldn't be enough, or why you think this worked. Love to see a conversation about that. Anyway, we'll see you next time.